Each year in Canada, February marks Black History Month. By the name, you could probably guess that Black History Month is all about celebrating the history of Black Canadians, right? Well, yes, but the conversation is deep. So, let's get into it. This is Can Explains Black History Month. Okay, so here we are in 2022, celebrating the 27th anniversary of Black History Month in Canada. So if I do some quick math, that means Black History Month started in 1995? Well, kind of. I mean, officially in Canada, yes. But its history goes back much farther than that, and takes us to a different country. Black History Month has its origins in the United States, and goes all the way back to 1926. A historian named Carter G. Woodson proposed creating a dedicated time to celebrate African Americans and heighten awareness of Black history. And he was a pretty big deal at the time. Woodson was only the second African American to earn his PhD from the prestigious Harvard University. What he started was something called Negro History Week, and it was celebrated until the 1970s when it became Black History Week. And then, in 1976, it became Black History Month. Pretty cool, but that's a whole lot of American history. Canadians were celebrating Black History Month as well, but it wasn't until 1995 that things became official. Now, here's a name everyone should know. Gina Gosti. She is the main person responsible for getting Black History Month in front of the Canadian government. She is the first Black Canadian woman ever elected to Parliament. And in 1995, she put forth a motion to officially recognize February as Black History Month. It was passed unanimously. And not trying to brag here or anything, but I've actually met her. I was on an intergenerational panel for Black History Month with her. And yeah, she is as cool as she sounds. But it wasn't until 2008 that the Senate officially approved it. Senator Donald Oliver, the first Black man to sit in the Canadian Senate, introduced a motion that also received unanimous approval, completing Canada's parliamentary position on Black History Month. Okay, so we're done talking about how it began. Now, let's talk about Black history. When we talk about Black history, we are really talking about the history of Canada, or as Crystal Webster, an assistant professor of history at the University of British Columbia, puts it,
Black history is not distinct from Canadian history or from history of North America. It really is integral to this history. It's impossible to teach about the history of Canada without talking about not only Black contributions, but also the ways in which Canada should have done better and can continue to do better.
Often when we talk about Black history and tell the story of Black people in North America, there's a focus on enslavement and the story of enslaved people. And Dr. Webster says that is important.
It gives us the space to think about Canada's relationship to Black oppression and the fact that slavery did exist in Canada.
But it is also important to understand that this is part of the Black history in Canada, not the whole story. Or, as Christopher Taylor, an assistant professor of history at the University of Waterloo, puts it,
if this is something that you're only being exposed to for these 28 or 29 days, you're going to think that all Black people, our history begins with enslavement, begins with police shootings, begins with, this, what we call the dehumanization. So the world sees us as lesser than somebody else. However, when we're talking about Black History Month, we can actually use this as an opportunity to start just enjoying Black culture.
There are some amazing heroes throughout Black history in Canada. Take Marianne Shad, for example. In 1853, she became the first Black woman to publish a newspaper in North America. Her paper, The Provincial Freeman, was an anti-slavery publication, and she was vital in giving a voice to Black people. And she's just one example. There are so many amazing people throughout Black history in Canada, like Mifflin Gibbs, who in 1866, in what is now British Columbia, became the first Black person to be elected to public office. Or Willie O'Ree, who broke the color barrier in hockey when he became the first Black person to play in the NHL. Another interesting part of Black history in Canada is the idea that it represents the stories of the entire Black community.
We say Black History Month, Black community, as if Black people are just one thing. We completely ignore those so many differences between Black communities. Especially in Canada, we think, okay, well, if you're Black, you speak English, but if you're Black, you can speak Arabic, speak French, Spanish, Portuguese, all as your first language. We all didn't come from Jamaica. You could come from Antigua, Anguilla, Cuba, Ghana, Nigeria. Even if you came from Nigeria, you could be Igbo, you could be Yoruba.
In Canada, there's a wide range of notable Black communities throughout our history, like Africville in Halifax, Little Burgundy in Montreal, North Buxton in Ontario, Amber Valley in Alberta, Hogan's Alley in Vancouver. Each of these communities have their own stories, backgrounds, and diversity that makes up the Black community in Canada. Okay, but Black History Month isn't only about the past. Lots of people are talking about the present and the future. Let's start with the future. There's an idea called Black Futures Month, and the idea is to draw focus during February to what is happening now in Canada and where it's going. At the University of Windsor, for example, they are celebrating something called Black History and Black Futures, and Miriam Tolson-Murdy is directing the celebration.
I thought it was really important to establish a committee to talk not just about Black history, but Black futures. Black History Month isn't just about celebrating the history, it's about celebrating the present and the future.
And a huge part of celebrating Black futures is young people. Just like we talked about heroes throughout Black history in Canada, part of celebrating Black futures is talking about young heroes who are making a difference today. Like 16-year-old Kayla Escoffery, for example. She's a member of an organization called Black York Region Youth,
which is a program designed to combat anti-Black racism in the York region, but also across the GTA.
She is also the founder of the Black Student Association at her high school, and founded her own nonprofit called Young Melanin and Feminine, which
first began with just the conversation. So we brought all these Black girls together over a Zoom, and we just started talking about hair and representation and colorism. And it was a way for them to connect and have a community around them. What do we want to see happen in the world, as well as what can we do as Black girls ourselves to make a difference in the world as well?
She thinks it's important for young people to start making their own history.
I think it's important that youth make sure that their voices are heard, but I also think it's also the duty of adults to look for kids and ask for their opinions and their voice as well.
And Dr. Taylor says there's another way you can celebrate Black History Month in a more contemporary and personal way.
One thing we need to understand is that whatever happened yesterday is history. Whatever happened a week ago is history. Whatever is going to happen tomorrow is the future. Your teachers, your coaches, your tutors, they're all a part of Black history. So these are what I want people to understand, to write down these stories, listen to these stories. You don't have to have a famous name out there, but everybody's very important. Your family, your parents, your guardians, your siblings, you are a part of Black history.
And as amazing as it is for there to be an official month to celebrate Black history and the contributions of Black Canadians, many people think there needs to be a more sustained focus beyond the month of February.
And I think that that's such an important conversation for us to have year-round, like you said, and that the people are doing the work year-round, and we really want to celebrate that, young people and adults alike.
It doesn't mean Black History Month is a bad thing. It's a great starting point for a more in-depth, sustained, impactful conversation about Black history and Black Canadians throughout the year. Okay, so now we know where Black History Month started, what people are talking about, what we should be talking more about, and where Black History Month and Black Futures are headed. That's it for KN Explains. For CBC Kids News, I'm Ainara Alleyne. We did a lot of research and spoke to some amazing people to help us produce this video. I interviewed Christopher Taylor. He is an assistant professor of history at the University of Waterloo. He is also the Associate Vice President of Equity, Diversity, Inclusions, and Anti-Racism. Crystal Webster is an assistant professor of history at the University of British Columbia. Miriam Tolson-Murdy is the Director of Anti-Racism Organizational Change at the University of Windsor. Kayla Escoffery is a high school student, founder of Young Melanin and Feminine, and a member of Black York Region Youth. We also consulted with people to help us research and shape this video. They are Chris Wilson, Zeta Smith, Alana Johnson, and Asha Edlin. We also reference information from the Canadian Encyclopedia, the Government of Canada, and CBC.